Attention, attention! Breaking news update from Smith Middle School. Mr. L's class is about to enter a unit on ancient China. In this unit, you will learn about the geography, the history, and culture of the ancient Chinese. China was one of the earliest centers of civilization in the history of the world, and China's two major rivers, the Huanghe and the Yangtze River, played key roles in Chinese history and the development of Chinese society. China covers an area of nearly 4 million square miles, which is roughly the same size as the United States, and the rivers and plains of eastern China have long been important farming areas and therefore were home to the earliest Chinese dynasties. Because China is so large, northern, southern, and western China have very different environments. In the pictures you see here, picture 1 shows northern China, which is the Huanghe or Yellow River region. This has long been the center of civilization in China, and the river has a yellowish look to it because of the color of the silt. Picture 2 shows southern China, which receives more rainfall than northern China, which allows farmers to grow several crops of rice every year. And western China's high mountains and wide deserts make travel difficult and isolate China's populations from those in the east. The first dynasty for which we have clear evidence for was the Shang dynasty. It lasted from roughly 1500 to 1050 BC. The Shang made many advances, including China's first writing system. The Chinese symbols that are used today are based on those of the Shang period. Chinese priests would carve questions about the future on cattle bones and turtle shells. They were then heated, causing them to crack. The priests believed they could read these cracks to predict the future, which is why these bones were called oracle bones. During the 1100s BC, the Zhou, a people from the west, came and overthrew Shang rulers. The Zhou expanded their rule south to the Changjiang River. The Zhou also established a new political system called feudalism. In this feudal system, kings granted land to lords in return for loyalty and military assistance. Lords then divided their land among lesser nobles. Peasants also received small plots of land and had to farm additional land for that noble. This social order brought by the Zhou lasted a long time, but eventually loyalty to the lords gradually weakened, and people began fighting each other. By the 400s BC, China had entered into an era called the Warring States period. It was during this time that many people started to search for answers and new ways to live in life. And because of this, we have the creation of 3 main Chinese philosophies: Confucianism, legalism, and Taoism. The Warring States period marked a time in China when several states battled each other for power. One state, the Qin, built a strong army that defeated the armies of all other states, and by 221 BC, the Qin king was able to unify China. He gave himself the title Shi Huangdi, which means First Emperor. Shi Huangdi was a follower of legalism, therefore he created a strong government with strict laws and severe punishments. He ordered the burning of all books that did not agree with legalism in a process known as censorship. Shi Huangdi also took land away from the lords, destroying the feudal system of the Zhou. He divided China into several military districts and made people work on government building projects such as the creation of the Great Wall or the creation of his tomb, which holds thousands of lifelike soldiers known as terracotta warriors. After the death of Emperor Qin, a peasant named Liu Bang led an army that won control of China. This marked the beginning of the Han Dynasty, which lasted roughly from 206 BC to 220 AD. The Han Dynasty was a time of great achievements in China. It was also during this time that Confucianism became the official government policy, and the family once again became the center of Chinese society. This painting depicts members of the Han Dynasty engaging in a practice called ancestor worship. Also, in addition to art and literature, inventors developed many useful devices during the Han Dynasty. They also made great works of art with bronze, such as this horse here. Other Chinese inventions during the Han Dynasty were things like the sundial and the seismograph, which was a device that measured the strength and direction of an earthquake. The Han Chinese also invented acupuncture, which is a practice of inserting fine needles through the skin at specific points in order to cure disease or relieve pain. The Han also made great advancements in architecture and contributed greatly to the development of classic Chinese architecture seen here. The Chinese were also the first people to invent silk. The technique for making silk was kept secret in ancient China, as silk was a valuable trade good in distant lands. Workers made silk from the cocoons of silkworms, just as they do today. There were many trade routes in and out of China, and because most people were traveling these trade routes for silk, these routes became famously known as the Silk Road. Although traveling the Silk Road was difficult and risky, it was worth it. Silk was so popular in Rome, for example, that China grew wealthy just from trading with the Romans. Traders returned to China with gold, silver, precious stones, and horses. Because the Chinese came in contact with many other civilizations along the Silk Road, many ideas and beliefs spread to China through the process of cultural diffusion. One of these belief systems was the religion of Buddhism. Even though it began in India under Siddhartha Gautama, it spread rapidly and became very popular in China. For much more on China's geography, dynasties, philosophies, and achievements, please stay tuned to your unit to come.